Mississippi Delta slang for after hours wild good time dance party. Thanks for all those who made Saturday memorable. Muskegon showed off very well. Eric, you get to introduce the program. Here we are.
I have the pleasure of introducing Mr. Scott Timmer, who I've known for probably 3 decades or so. Scott grew up in East Lansing. He saw the light at an early age and matriculated downstate to the University of Michigan for his undergrad and law school. Scott's a history major undergrad and graduated with honors and high distinction from the University of Michigan. He practiced law in Detroit area for 8 years and again had an epiphany and migrated to Muskegon in 1988. Scott's been practicing law for 45 years. I think he started when he was about 10 or so, because he's not really that old. He's a Michigan super lawyer and included in Best Lawyers in America. Scott joined Muskegon Rotary around 1990, transferred to Grand Rapids Downtown Rotary Club in 2002 when working downtown Grand Rapids. He boomeranged and rejoined the Muskegon Rotary Club about 8 years ago after becoming a partner in the Norton Shores law firm Gilo Groom. Currently on the board of Land Conservancy of West Michigan, U of M Club of Grand Rapids. He has 3 daughters. One's at MSU. She may well have seen the light too and go down to Ann Arbor. Scott advises a number of local entrepreneurs at a very high level on their projects. He's an amateur historian, member of the Sons of American Legion. Scott's going to talk us a little bit about the evolution of Veterans Day and some stories about some of our local veteran that we've heard of before, some very famous people. Scotty.
Thanks, Eric. That's a very nice introduction, and greetings to all fellow Rotarians and guests. After World War II ended, Winston Churchill was asked if he thought history would be kind to him, and he replied that it would because he intended to write it. He then wrote a 6-volume history of World War II that won the Nobel Prize for Literature, and I'm glad I didn't have to go the Churchill route for my introduction. The last World War I veteran died about 10 years ago, and there was only about 45,000 U.S. World War II veterans left out of 16 million who served. I've seen a marked decline in Veterans Day celebrations and events, and I wanted to do this Veterans Day presentation so we can collectively honor the sacrifice and express gratitude for the service of all veterans. Veterans Day had its roots in World War I, which was arguably the greatest tragedy in world history. It's estimated that 10 million soldiers died in World War I. And World War II, communism, Nazism, and even the current war in Ukraine and the fighting in the Middle East are all based on things that happened in World War I and in its aftermath. The Arctic explorer, Sir Ernest Shackleton, left for Antarctica on his ship, the Endurance, in August 1914 when World War I had just begun. His ship was crushed by the ice and sank, and he returned to civilization in May 1916, 2 years later, after an epic journey in a lifeboat. Here's a picture of Shackleton and his crushed ship. When he arrived at a whaling station, he asked what had happened with the war. The guy he asked answered, "The war isn't over. Millions are dead. Europe is mad. The world is mad," which was right. Let me give you an idea of how terrible World War I was. About 2,900 people died on September 11, 2001. In World War I, an average of 6,000 soldiers died every day for over 4 years. On August 28, 1914, this is 3 weeks into the war, 28,000 French soldiers were killed in a single day. On July 1, 1916, 20,000 British soldiers were killed on the first day of the Battle of the Somme. The United States didn't enter the war until April 1917, after the war had already been going on for 2.5 years. The total number of U.S. soldiers killed in World War I was around 100,000. Here's a picture of the largest U.S. World War I cemetery in France. and it has over 14,000 American soldiers' graves included in it. In October 1918, the German Army's commanders realized that the war was lost, and they told the German government to ask for an armistice. An armistice is different than a surrender and different than a peace treaty. It simply means the cessation of hostilities until a treaty can be negotiated. The armistice was signed at 5 a.m. on November 11, 1918, and it provided for fighting to stop at 11 a.m. the same morning, which was the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month of 1918, so apparently somebody liked all the symmetry to that. But in any event, I want to show you a picture of this fellow, the guy with the arrow aiming towards it, and his name is Henry Gunther, and he was a private in the U.S. Army in World War I. He'd been busted from sergeant to private because he wrote a letter home to a friend describing the misery of the trenches and telling him to avoid frontline service. It was read by an Army censor, and Sergeant Gunther became Private Gunther. After the armistice agreement was signed at 5 a.m. on November 11, 1918, General Pershing, the American commander-in-chief, authorized continuing attacks on the German lines until 11 a.m. for reasons that were considered very controversial in retrospect. The Allied armies had over 11,000 casualties on the morning of November 11, 1918, prior to 11 a.m., which included 3,500 American casualties. Private Gunther's company was ordered to attack a German machine gun nest just before 11 a.m. The Germans were waving at Private Gunther, trying to tell him the war was over, but he shot at them, and they shot back, and he was killed at 10:59 a.m. on November 11, 1918, the last Allied soldier to die in World War I, a senseless final death and a senseless war. Congress passed a resolution in 1926 proclaiming November 11 as, quote, a day of thanksgiving and prayer for perpetual peace, unquote. The resolution referenced November 11, 1918 as, quote, the end of the most destructive, sanguinary, and far-reaching war in the history of human annals. And it expressed the hope that the war, then known as the Great War, would be, quote, the war to end all wars. Armistice Day was made a federal holiday in 1938. In Britain and the Commonwealth countries, they celebrate Remembrance Day, which I think is really a better name for November 11. Poppies have long been a symbol of remembrance for World War I because supposedly red poppies were among the first plants to grow in fields that had been churned up by shell fire. And they're also part of the most famous poem from World War I written by Canadian physician John McCrae, In Flanders Fields. And I want to read that. In Flanders fields the poppies blow, between the crosses row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the larks still bravely singing fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead, short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields. The British set up a World War I memorial in 2014 to mark the 100th anniversary of the start of World War I in London. And at the Tower of London, they set up 900,000 poppies representing one for each British soldier killed in World War I. And this is a picture of that display. At the time, Britain had a population of about 49 million, and the U.S. population is 350 million, so that'd be the equivalent of over 5 million American soldiers killed if it had been the same proportion. After World War II, a World War II veteran named Raymond Weeks led a movement to push for a national holiday that would honor all war veterans, living and dead, to be celebrated on Armistice Day. So Congress eventually passed a bill in 1954 changing Armistice Day to Veterans Day. And Veterans Day is intended to honor all veterans, whether or not they fought in a war. Memorial Day, by contrast, came out of the Civil War, and it specifically honors just those who died in military service. So that's the distinction between Veterans Day and Memorial Day. Turning to West Michigan, a fellow named Lewis Lunsford made a proposal in 1924 to build a memorial for Muskegans dead from World War I at the Causeway to North Muskegon. It was estimated to cost $1 million, so Lunsford was criticized for trying to build a, quote, $1 million muskrat farm. But it was completed, And it was dedicated before a crowd of 10,000 people on November 11, 1934. This is a postcard showing the Causeway Park when it was first completed. It includes a plaque right here that's dedicated, quote, in memory of the illustrious dead of Muskegon County who died in the World War, and it has 80 names on it. One interesting World War I legacy is that the town of Marne, Michigan, off of I-96, was settled mostly by German immigrants and named Berlin. Those immigrants were concerned about people doubting their patriotism, so the town changed its name from Berlin to Marne in 1919 to commemorate the Second Battle of the Marne that was won by the American Army in 1918. But Berlin Raceway and some churches in Marne are still have the Berlin name. So let's turn to World War II and some World War II veterans from West Michigan. Does anyone recognize this fellow? Yep. Dr. Robert Garrison, longtime Muskegon physician. Dr. Garrison was in pharmacy school at Ohio State, go Bucks. When the U.S. entered World War II, Dr. Garrison became one of the Tuskegee Airmen, the black fighter pilots that flew out of Italy to escort U.S. bombers. They were the subject of a Hollywood movie a few years ago called Red Tails, starring Lawrence Fishburne and Cuba Gooding Jr., and the movie was named for the red paint on the tails of their P-51 Mustang fighters. I had the honor of introducing Dr. Garrison to this club about 30 years ago for his presentation, and I sat with him for lunch beforehand. And those of you who know Dr. Garrison know he was a very humble and quiet guy who didn't really want to talk about World War II. But he told me that he was initially denied admittance to the American Officer Program based on race discrimination. So he wrote a letter directly to President Roosevelt and complained. And after that, he was one of a small group of black officer candidates who were admitted to the Tuskegee Airmen Program. I, of course, also asked him if he shot down any German planes, and he said that he didn't, but he said at one point a German Me-262 jet fighter attacked the bombers he was escorting, and he was able to drive it off by shooting at it. And then I also asked him if he continued to fly after the war, and he said he didn't. So apparently flying a fighter over Germany and Austria in World War II was enough flying for him. Dr. Garrison returned to Ohio State after the war and got his medical degree, and there's a memorial to Dr. Garrison at the Silversides Museum. He passed away in 2003 after decades of service in Muskegon as a physician. I'll bet some of you recognize the next guy, Joe Byerly, that's right. Joe Byerly was a paratrooper in the 101st Airborne Division before D-Day, but this is before D-Day. He parachuted twice into Nazi-occupied France to help the French resistance, and then he parachuted into Normandy on D-Day, and he was captured by the Germans a few days later and sent to a prison camp in eastern Germany. He was reported as killed in action, and there was a funeral mass held for him in Muskegon after D-Day. He escaped from prison camps twice, and the first time he got on a train and he was trying to go to Poland, but he ended up in Berlin. So he was captured and he was tortured by the Gestapo. After his second escape, Joe Byerly made it to Russian lines, and he joined the Russian army and fought with the Russians until the end of the war. So he is the only Allied soldier known to have fought the Germans on both the Western Front and the Eastern Front. This is a picture of Joe Byerly taken by the Germans in the prison camp. And he certainly looks like a guy who was angry enough to both escape and join the Russian army. Joe Byerly received decorations from both the U.S. Army and the Russian Army, and there's several wonderful postscripts to his World War II story. He was honored at the White House in 1994 by President Clinton and Russian President Boris Yeltsin. One of his two sons, James Byerly, became a diplomat and was the U.S. ambassador to Russia. And his other son served in the 101st Airborne Division like he did and fought during the Vietnam War. Joe Byerly worked at Brunswick and Muskegon as a shipping supervisor for 28 years, and he passed away in 2004 and was buried at Arlington National Cemetery. The last World War II vet that I want to cover isn't a Muskegon native. He's from Grand Rapids, but he married a gal from Muskegon who's my mother. My dad, Jim Timmer, graduated from high school along with his twin brother John in June 1943 when they were still 17 years old. Anyone aged under 18 had to have their parents' approval to join the U.S. military, which my dad and his twin brother both got. They joined the 82nd Airborne Division and were sent to England to be part of the D-Day invasion. The 82nd Airborne Division was actually formed during World War I and was called All-American since it drew soldiers from all over the U.S. and not from one particular state or region, and that's why the division patch is two big capital A's. Here's a picture of my dad and his twin brother during training. Here is a picture of the company roster dated June 4, 1944, 2 days prior to the D-Day invasion that Mike highlighted their names on. They were supposed to be part of a second attacking wave and to arrive in gliders. The casualties for the first wave were expected to be about 75%, and so the second wave was intended to provide replacements, but the actual casualties were less than 50%. So my dad and uncle didn't arrive by glider. They crossed the English Channel on a ship. My dad and my uncle fought in France, Belgium, Battle of the Bulge, the Netherlands, and in Germany. And they were part of the occupation army in Berlin until the end of 1945. This is a picture of my dad and my uncle with their brother Pete in the middle. It was taken in France, I think just after World War II. Airborne troops were allowed to blouse their boots, meaning they would tuck their trousers into their jump boots, and regular Army soldiers didn't, so that's why you see Pete with straight leg pants and them with their trousers tucked into the top of their boots. In January 1946, my dad and his twin brother and their division came home on the Queen Mary, and here's a picture of the Queen Mary with the troops on board. The Queen Mary carried 2,100 passengers during peacetime. During World War II, it was redone to hold up to 16,000 soldiers, almost 8 times as many as the regular capacity. My youngest daughter and I were in Long Beach, California 2 years ago, and we toured the Queen Mary, and part of the ship is set up like it was in World War II with a picture of there's a picture of the troop quarters, so that's how you fix 16,000 people into a ship built for 2,100. My dad said that the Atlantic Passage was so rough that the mess area floors were a sea of vomit. So I'm sorry to tell you that during lunch. But after they arrived in New York in January 1946, the 82nd Airborne Division was chosen to represent the American Army in a victory parade down Fifth Avenue. And that's a picture of the parade down Fifth Avenue from January 1946. And here's a picture of the reviewing stand. My dad and my uncle should be in there somewhere. My dad brought a German officer's pistol home with him, and he took it to the police station, but he couldn't register it. Can anybody guess why? He was only 20 years old. And you have to be 21 to own a handgun. So my mother was a travel agent for 20 years, and my parents traveled all over the world. They went to India, China, Africa, Russia, Brazil, but not to Western Europe. And so when friends would ask my dad about that, he'd say, "I got a free trip to Europe in 1944 from my Uncle Sam." 2 years ago on Veterans Day, I posted a picture of my dad's uniform on Facebook along with a description of what the symbols and decorations mean. I got an email from a guy in the Netherlands who runs a World War II museum with his father in the same area where the 82nd Airborne Division landed as part of Operation Market Garden, which took place in September 1944. The plan for that attack was for 2 American and 1 British Airborne Division to seize key Dutch bridges behind German lines and then have British tank divisions rush up across the bridges to invade Germany. The attack was the subject of the movie A Bridge Too Far, which had Robert Redford, Ryan O'Neal, Sean Connery, Gene Hackman, and Anthony Hopkins in it. among other stars. The museum guy wanted to know the details of my dad's service, and he also invited my two sisters and I to visit the museum. So in April 2024, I got a call from my two sisters, and they said, we're going to the Netherlands in June, and you're going to stay on the phone until you book the trip online. So I did. They knew I was kind of a procrastinator. So we flew into Amsterdam and then went down to the museum area. And this is a picture of my two sisters and I in a 82nd Airborne restored Jeep that the museum has. And while we were there, the 80th anniversary of Operation Market Garden was coming up, and the museum guys asked if I'd be willing to be interviewed by a Dutch TV station for an anniversary documentary. So here's a clip from that interview. I just don't know. My father's parents were from Friesland and Groningen. My grandparents had 10 children, and 6 were sons, and 5 of the sons were fighting in World War II at the same time. And in the USA, parents would put a blue star in their window to show they had a son in the service. So my grandparents had 5 stars in their window, and if a son was killed, then it was changed from a blue star to a gold star. But fortunately, all 5 sons survived the war. But as my sister said, my grandmother wouldn't answer the front door during the war because she was afraid it was someone from the War Department that would tell her that one of her sons had died. He was scheduled to be part of D-Day, and he was told that there would be 75% casualties in the 82nd Airborne Division, and he would come in a second wave and glider. But the casualty rate was only 50%, and so he came by ship rather than by glider. He didn't talk about it very much at all. He really didn't want to talk about it, and neither did his twin brother. They were occupation troops in Berlin after World War II, and they would talk a lot about being in Germany and in Berlin and what happened after the war, but they wouldn't say very much about the war itself. The windmill that you saw in that clip was used as an observation post by the 82nd Airborne Division during Operation Market Garden. And from the top of the windmill, you can see Germany. It's only about 3 miles away. The windmill was attacked by German artillery, and the American observer in the windmill was killed. The windmill is currently being restored, and the mother of the guy doing the restoration work was a child during the artillery attack, and she still has shrapnel in her from the artillery attack, which is kind of incredible. What I want to do. Wanted to display my dad's uniform, which is here. He wore this during the Victory Parade down Fifth Avenue. The Dutch government wanted to honor the 82nd Airborne soldiers that fought to liberate Holland from the Nazis, and so they authorized the uniforms to include an orange lanyard, which is right here, since orange is the Dutch national color. So this is a picture of my dad's grave in Lansing, Michigan. In the upper right-hand corner, it's got the 82nd Airborne Division logo, which is what he requested. It's well tended by my brother-in-law, John, who was a combat medic in Vietnam in the 1st Air Cav Division. And he's always told me it's one old vet taking care of another one, which is pretty cool. So keeping in mind that Veterans Day is intended to honor all American service people, men and women, living and dead, those who served in wartime and in peacetime, let me conclude by saying to Private Gunther, Dr. Robert Garrison, Joe Byerly, Privates Jim and John Timmer, and all other veterans, thank you for your service.
If everyone could return to their seats except the veterans in the room. Can we see them? Veterans in the room, thank you. We got time for a couple of questions. Back corner, two of them.
Again, thank you to all the veterans. I happen to be thrilled to have had a World War II veteran as my stepfather. And the interesting thing is, as a child, he told me all the stories about his experiences. Why me? I do not know. There were 7 of us, but he chose to. So as he aged, I approached the Silversides to see if someone could interview him. And they drove 3.5 hours from Muskegon to where my stepfather was and interviewed him. And that tale is on an archive in the Silversides, which I gave to his son at the time of his death.
Question? Kelly.
Thank you. That was a very moving that you did. I just wondered how all 5 siblings were able to serve in combat at the same time. I currently have 3 of my children serving, and one is being deployed next year. So I knew after the Civil War, when one mother lost all 5 of her children, I believe, it was not allowed to have all of them serving combat at the same time?
There was never a restriction on that. I mean, Saving Private Ryan, you know, that's kind of the topic of that movie. There was a cruiser in the South Pacific in World War II, the USS Juno, and it was sunk. And the 5 Sullivan brothers were serving on that at the same time, and all of them were killed. And after that, they said, we're not going to have multiple brothers serving on a ship at the same time. So they did impose that restriction, but I'm not aware of any, general restriction on how many kids you can have in the service.
Because I know I have 2 uncles that served. My father served in the Vietnam, and then I also had 2 uncles that were in Vietnam. And because they were only half siblings was the only reason they were both allowed to be in combat at the same time. But I know for Vietnam they wouldn't allow siblings to be in combat situations at the same time. And as a mom...
One interesting side note is President Roosevelt was very much an advocate for the U.S. to enter World War I on the side of the Allies. He had 4 sons. All of them served in the military. His son Quentin was a fighter pilot and was killed. And all the other 3 sons were wounded. And Theodore Roosevelt died 6 months after World War I ended of a broken heart from Quentin being killed.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Scott, thank you very much for sharing your experience, your talent, your research. Very much appreciated. Speakers honorarium this year will be Muskegon Rotary Club donation for supplies and materials used by our club members and youth from our Interact clubs as they take service trips to El Salvador and Honduras. Birthday slide. Pat Walstra, Brianna Scott, Jeanette Hoyer, Dane Robinson, Chris McWigan, Michelle Burley. Yeah, there we go. We got the ladies to start us off. Happy birthday, please. All those with a birthday, now or into the future or past, please consider giving a $10 donation to our Caring Connections. You can do that through envelopes up here. There's a QR code also in the rim. So thank you for support of that. Rotary in action, Marcia Hovey Wright. Michael.
So I'm Marcia Hovey Wright, and I joined Rotary back in the early 2000. before 2005, I was planning to run for office, and I wanted to meet people and learn more about the community. So one of the things that, one of the projects that the DEI committee did that I got very involved with and feel very proud of is the Love Lives Here effort. So back in 2019, I believe it was, there was some graffiti, racist graffiti that was written on a school. There was a noose that was hung by a school. And at the time, we had the police chief on our committee, and he said, we've got to do something. Within a half an hour, we had a whole plan to roll out these yard signs that said, and we came up with a slogan, the Love Lives Here slogan. And we planned a letter, several people who were good wordsmithers put together this beautiful letter that was read at the meeting a couple months ago, explaining the problem and what we had to do and how we had to treat each other better. And that letter was signed by 200 people. And then when we relaunched it and did the Love Still Lives Here signs, and there's more to come, we just haven't identified that yet. But those of us on the committee, I mean, we were in tears. And I'm feeling that now as well, with pride at the way we were that we were doing this and the response we were getting. And it was very emotional. And I'm very proud of it.
We do have a legacy, obviously, in many, many ways, and that's one that I, as a member, am also very proud of. Where am I at here? Okay, we have an induction today. Would Bernard Brown step forward with an introduction from Megan Caraba? Folks.
Maybe not so far. Thank you, everybody. I am pleased to introduce you to Bernard Brown today. Bernard is in his second year as Director of Career and Technical Education, CTE, which includes representing the Career Education Planning District, CEPD, for our Muskegon Area ISD. It's alphabet soup. In this work, Bernard maintains the administration, vision, and inspiration for 17 career programs at our Muskegon Area Career Tech Center, 18 career programs in 8 of our local high schools, as well as the hard work of our county-wide career and college readiness efforts. Before joining the Muskegon Area ISD, Bernard spent 3 years as the Director of Instructional Services and CPED for Newaygo County RESA. 5 years of legacy work that we are blessed to have him here with. Young Bernard began his career as a CTE instructor in Harper Creek High School and Loy Norrix High School, where he spent 8 years in career and technical education. His focus was in the pathways of pre-engineering, pre-architecture, and industrial arts. He graduated from Western Michigan University with a bachelor's degree in industrial arts. Go Broncos. And he earned an occupational endorsement from his industry experience at Parker Hannifin, Jarvis Pemco, and Western Michigan University's physical plant. Bernard's leadership training includes the Michigan Association for Supervision and Curriculum Development, Leadership Institute, and Leadership Matters, along with his master's degree in educational leadership from none other than Michigan State University. Go White. As a new emerging leader, Bernard worked for 5 years in the middle school and high school space in Battle Creek Public Schools. He implemented transformational learning plans for schools, that were designated as persistently low achieving by the state of Michigan. After many years spent in Calhoun and Kalamazoo counties, Bernard moved north, serving as the principal of the Newaygo County Career Tech Center, which of course laid the groundwork for his recent legacy work here as CTE director and CPED director. Bernard's why is simple: to make profound impact on the lives of others. In both work and play, we now can see why being a Rotarian is a perfect fit for him. His past service work includes coaching, youth sports, and developing a travel soccer team that supports access for kids who could not travel or afford to play in larger cities or at higher levels of competition. His wife, Mary, of 23 years, is an oncology nurse and supports his coaching endeavors as they work to ensure youth have access to healthy meals and physical activity. Lately, Bernard and Mary's son, Raleigh, now a sophomore at Rockford High School, keeps them busy with his own high school events and sports, as well as joining dear old dad refereeing on the weekends. It's truly a family affair. Rotarians, please help me welcome my boss, but more importantly, my friend, Mr. Bernard Brown.
Go on the other side of him and- Okay. Stay right here. Fellow Rotarians and guests, it's a great privilege today to formally welcome a new member to the Muskegon Rotary Club. Membership in Rotary is not merely joining a club, but becoming part of a global family dedicated to making a positive impact locally and internationally. Rotary International is a family of more than 1.2 million Rotarians in more than 45,000 clubs in over 200 countries worldwide. Bernard Brown, welcome to the Muskegon Rotary Club. You were invited to membership because you embody the spirit of service and the high ethical standards Rotary upholds. Your sponsor recognized your potential and introduced you to this organization, which is committed to fostering the ideal of service above self. As a member, you now represent Rotary in our community. Membership involves duties and obligations, including regular attendance and contributions to serve and fundraise activities. You will need to join a committee, become involved in the work of this club and of Rotary International. We promote peace, fight disease, provide clean water, support education, embrace mothers and children, grow local economies, and protect the environment. Locally, we have a long tradition of developing youth leadership among other avenues of community service. Join us in our work and the joy of fellowship. Do you agree to the obligations of Rotary membership?
I do.
I formally induct you, Bernard, into the Muskegon Rotary Club. I'm providing you with a Rotary pin. Wear it with pride. Also here is a club directory and the Rotary four-way test. And you don't have to deal with that until you sit down.
All right, thank you.
I ask you to take the gift of Rotary and share it with others. Specifically, invite someone with your commitment to community and ethical standards to join the Muskegon Rotary Club in the next 6 months. Will you accept this assignment?
I will.
Thank you. At the end of the meeting, please be in the lobby with your sponsor to allow members to welcome you to the club. With that, I ask members and guests of the Muskegon Rotary Club to rise and welcome the newest Rotarian in the world, Bernard Brown. Welcome, Bernard. More inductions to come. I think we just put 4 or 5 new members in at this last board meeting. We are now up for Meredith. You want to find 2 other folks who are going to be exiting our event here.
Thank you, Dave. Mike, if you'll pull up our wheel for us, we will take a look at the next two contestants in our Brave Rotarians contest, which is Where in Muskegon is Dave Alexander?
Check it out where I'm going to be at.
No pressure. Nobody wants to be eliminated today. We're good for another week. There you go. Jules Terry. Oh, goodness. Where is Dave Alexander? There you go. Definitely one of Dave's favorite places. All right, one more spin for us, Dave. Mike? Thank you to John Rupert and to also Jules Terry for your participation. Stay tuned next week. We are down to 6 Rotarians who could win a Paul Harris Fellow. So thank you.
Thank you, Meredith, and we'll remind everybody that this is the month to honor the Rotary International Foundation. We'll have some more information on that as we progress this month. But remember, the every Rotarian every year request of a Rotary to support that foundation. Let's see, where are we? Okay, we are on to announcements. If you have a club committee or event, please come forward, keeping your remarks to 2 minutes. I'll tell you as they are coming up that the next Rotary Rewind meeting is scheduled for 5:15 next Thursday, November 20, at the Vault in the Core Plaza building. The board this week established some important dates. Hold on there, folks. I love it, and excitement. Important dates for the end of our calendar year. First, there will be a membership vote on a club bylaw amendment at the Thursday, December 4th meeting. Second, the club annual meeting will be on Thursday, December 11th, when membership will vote on a slate of officers and new board directors who will take office on July 1, 2026. Finally, the last Rotary gathering of 2025 will be Thursday, December 18th, when there will be a holiday celebration luncheon. This will not be a formal meeting, but a social time to share fellowship with Rotarians, their significant others, and guests. More information to come in the RIM. Thanks to Rotarian Scott Timmer, who helped us with the board, getting us through the amendment process. As that bylaw change before the membership on December 4th is a proposal by your board of directors to allow for a co-presidency, which is being recommended by the nominating committee and forwarded by the board as part of the officers and directors slate. The bylaw change allows for a co-presidency with each co-president having a vote on the board of directors throughout their 4-year presidential succession. The board shall resolve any disputes among the co-presidents. Never going to happen, right? If the board has 14 members and there is a tie vote, the past president will break the tie. These bylaw changes will be emailed to all members, hopefully here by the end of the week, and again early in the week of December 4th. The bylaw amendments will be published in the RIM. Roger.
Thank you. Roger Morgenstern, co-chair of your Harvest Fest Committee. One of my last announcements, I hope.
I told you all was successful. We now have numbers, thanks to Kim Taylor, our treasurer. We came out with a net income of $23,130. Many thanks to people who bought tickets, were sponsors. Many of you Rotarians, it was very helpful. That's about $2,000 more than last year, so that's an increase. And that net income is after we've set aside $2,500 for SIM scholarships. These are the Culinary Institute of Michigan. These are the students that help service our wonderful food. We're giving them scholarships, $2,500 to their scholarship fund, and $1,000 to the Baker Rotaract Club, which was very helpful in the event. So thank you to everybody.
Seems so tall. Well, I guess today is truly my last day because I head out in a week, or no, next week, to go out and work with, again, U.S. Para-Alpine Ski Racing. It will be a huge year for us because in the end of February, we will be representing Team USA in the Paralympics. So I will be keeping you attuned to that. And it is such an honor to work with this team. And second of all, I just want to fill you in a little bit about Ed Hendrickson. Saw him last week. He is now out of ICU. He is on level 6 floor, and he would love visitations. Usually the afternoon is the best time for him. So he sends his best regards. He is recovering, but it will be a long haul. So please watch over each and every one of you while I'm gone, and trust me, I will be checking in. Go Team USA.
And please come back and do a program for us on your experience.
Tom Palmer from, I co-chair the membership council, and then I'm head of the Engagement and Connection Committee. And first off, I just found out Ed was in the hospital, so Caring Connections will be reaching out to him. And just remind, if you have something, share it with the board, share it with one of the Caring Connection members so we can respond in some way. Secondly, as far as the Engagement Connection for new members especially, we're having a new member social next Tuesday at the Vault, starting at 5:30. I'll probably be there early, so please come. And this is for new members within the last year, prospective members, members that have been approved, not inducted yet, Gavin, and older members that just want to connect. It's just a really nice time. We did it there early last year, and it was phenomenal. And please come out and just hang out, and we'll talk about Rotary.
Thank you. Again, Tuesday, Tom, Tuesday, Vault, 5:30. Got it. It'll be in the rim. Cool. Thank you. Bill, we got a raffle? How much, Bill? $5. 3281. Woo! Bill, we going for 10?
Number 306.
306.
And for $20. That's right. All right. Here we go. Number
296. Ooh. Thank you very much. Okay, our next week program is going to be the ICCF Community Homes program. And with housing being such a critical thing, not only locally, regionally, statewide national is one we will not want to miss. After the bell this year, as we mingle, I will play Jackson Brown's Loadout Stay in background in honor and appreciation of our meeting crew, Mike, Kim, Jay, Kevin, along with the staff here at the Delta. Thanks for making our meeting so meaningful. Now, if members and guests would please rise, we'll recite the four-way test. Of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Let's unite for good. We are adjourned.